Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creativity Camp at the Charter for Compassion. I'm Barbara Kaufman, steward of the arts sector at the Charter. A charter is usually a document that's drawn up by a governing body or an institution for creating a company, college, or city that outlines its rights and privileges as defined by its charter. The Charter for Compassion, though, is more than a document. It started out as a document with Karen Armstrong, who won the TED Talk prize, the annual prize in 2008, and went about writing the Charter for Compassion. But it's now grown into a movement. So 10,000 people around the world drafted that document with her. And people like Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama were involved in that. So people then started to come, they signed, they joined, and they volunteered. So 10 years later, the Charter represents about 9.5 million people. And with people, there are more than 400 member cities, 2,200 organizations that are partners in 54 countries. And there are 12 sectors, of which the arts is one sector. And then there's business, education, environment, healthcare, religion, spirituality, and interfaith, peace, science and research, restorative justice, social services, and women and girls. So whatever speaks to your heart, you can come and join us. In service to spreading compassion in the world, we're presenting this series of resources for those who have to shelter at home. We're featuring mostly arts partners, but all the sectors and volunteers are welcome. We hope you'll like the resources presented. We invite you to join the Charter, which is free, by the way, by clicking on the Partner tab at the top of the website. And if you sign on, you will get access to newsletters, programs, announcement, and news at the Charter for Compassion. And so now let's get on to why we're here today. We have a guest, Diana Suskind, and she's going to talk about a really unique experience called stonework play. Diana Suskind, twice a Fulbright scholar with a doctorate in early child education from the University of Illinois, an RIE associate, which is Resources for Infant Educators, consultant and international advocate for early childhood education, is the founder and developer of Stonework Play. She traveled throughout the world presenting workshops in places like Nepal, Malaysia, Israel, Australia, as well as Asia, Europe, Central America, Italy, New Zealand, and Puerto Rico. She's facilitated the Stonework Play workshops at Skirball Cultural Center Conference in Los Angeles and Sacramento with Early Head Start, and the World Forum on Early Care and Education in San Juan, Hawaii, and Macau. She's the author of Stonework Play and co-author of Baby Dancing, and has donated 1,000 of those books in the Nepali version to children in rural Nepal, and had it translated into Spanish in a free ebook format. You can download Baby Dancing under her website at dsuskind.com. That's dsuskind.com, and you can print it out. Diana is also a watercolor artist and photographer with a long list of artistic awards. You can find her videos on YouTube and on Facebook. And you can visit International Stonework Play to download a free ebook. November 3rd, by the way, is International Stonework Play Day. So welcome, Diana.
Hi.
So I want you to tell us about stonework. It's fascinating to me. I want you to tell us about what were you doing before you were doing Stonework Play, and then how did you happen to stumble upon this amazing exercise of stonework?
I did a lot before Stonework Play. I was a professor for 30 years at Fitchburg State, and prior to that I worked with the Army, and I was in Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska, and also in Karlsruhe, Germany. And I was a education specialist, and then a lead education specialist when the Desert Storm happened.
So can you tell us about Stonework Play? Just give us a little background about how it happened, how it developed, and what your experience was with it.
Okay, so you want me to tell you how I started Stonework Play, basically, or how it came into me?
Yeah, it's a fascinating story about how it started. So tell us about that.
before I do that, I just want one little thing can we do? And you don't have to do it. Okay, the people that I said that they're there, please put a stone on your hill, your hand on the top of the hand. And I'm just going to repeat this little poem. I wish I was a little stone. And I want you to really concentrate either on my stone or your stone, because I want you to feel, if there's such a word, stoneness, okay? I wish I was a little stone. If you want to repeat again. Sitting on a hill, doing nothing all day long, just a sitting still. I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't sleep, I wouldn't even wash. I just sit and sit 1,000 years and rest myself, oh gosh. Okay, now I'm okay. But they love it, and the children, they keep their hands up real high, and then they drop them down and they put them back up, but they think, wow, I didn't think about a stone before. All right, how I started stonework play. Let's go back to when I was like 5 years old. My father bought a cottage on a Tisco Lake. I mean, it was a burnt down piece of property, and he built a camp, and we still have it in our family today. I can remember I loved being outside, and when there was a dock, and then before the dock, just by the water, and pick up stones. And my favorite stone was, it was brown and it had white pieces in it, and it looked like a piece of chocolate. And so I would collect all those. And then my cousin came one time, and we found together a huge stone that it had a fossilized butterfly in it. And I loved it. So so I went on about stones, and I like stones. I moved to Alaska. And when I was in Alaska, I painted. I'm an artist, and I painted the 4 seasons. And I know I can't move my computer, but the winter, fall, spring, and summer. And I just painted a lot. In the meantime, I had my doctorate, and I was asked by Tulixek to go into the village and do some creative work with them. And she shared, Anna Phillips was the mayor of Tulixek, and she was just visiting me here last year. And she didn't create it, but she taught me how to do knife storytelling. And knife storytelling, I'll show you a picture, a painting that Diane Whittam did. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Put it back up. There.
Okay. This is amazing, and it's working in the mud, but they would say Yaluktik, and they would make the signs, and every village had their own kind of signs, and they used ivory knife or a wooden knife, and they would tell their stories. And the men, you would go to them about and ask them about Yaluktik, and they get their spit ready, because after they draw something, then they have to spit it out, and then they smooth out the mud, and they do it. So I went around Alaska doing it with her, and then she came out to LA, and we did it with Magda Gerber, which was really fun at a national conference. So, so I learned how to do knife storytelling, and then I was invited to go to Nepal, and I went there and was asked to do, I had a big conference, an early childhood conference, and I had studied with Magda Gerber, and so I was sharing that. And this school from HEMS, I mean, the principal from HEMS and his assistant, they came to the conference, and they said, please come to my school, please come to, and so I said, okay, I'll come. And I was really upset what I saw, and then the person I was with said, Diana, you can't complain. Unless you want to give some help, then just be quiet. And so, so we did learning centers. And when I taught at Pittsburgh State, I did a lot of learning centers, and we made it like really nice there. All right, so then.
Well, Diana, what was it about that you observed about the children that was upsetting to you? I think that's an important part of this story.
Yeah, the main thing is that they were doing so much rote learning, and they had real little pencils and little paper. And I thought, oh, they're learning the things that America is trying not to do, but yet maybe we're going back that way anyhow. But they were doing rote learning and memorizing. And then even the people I stayed with, Bimala, when I went to her school, they were older children, like 6th, 7th grade, and they were all reading out loud together when they had to read it. You know, they didn't know to close their mouth to read. It wasn't, so anyhow, it was just very, it was sad because they just didn't have an opportunity to make decisions, to be creative, to decide a title of a book, and I'll share that later. So what happened is they went, I'm so glad you're on the screen with me, thank you. They went to, let's see, what happened? I went again to do, they asked me to come back to do creativity, and we had done learning sessions. We did the Olympics, which was amazing, and that was when the real Olympics, when China was doing the Olympics, and we got the real torch from Nepal, and somebody had trained in Ithaca, New York, and they came after, and it was very lovely. And we did a zoo one, and so I got them to start to be more creative, but not in the classroom. I went to one classroom, and I was just supposed to be observing in the beginning, and this teacher's lovely, and she was reading, she was holding up a picture from a book, and it was a picture of a pineapple. And I said, like, why? You know, why are you doing it? Because the children were all copying the pineapple. First of all, they didn't know really what a pineapple was, and what were they learning? And so I was trying to get hands-on curriculum to happen in the classroom. So I ran to the first store, there wasn't one. And these were little baby stores. And I ran to the second one, I found a pineapple, came back, and we felt it and we touched it. The cook cut it, and it was just wonderful. And what I was trying to do is get the staff to see that they can make it, it doesn't have to cost so much money, but to make it interesting, to make it alive, and not to be boring if they all have to do the same thing at the same time. So after I did that, I looked on the ground when I left that room that day, and the ground had stones, and I thought, like, why not? Let's try it. And I thought, like, this is crazy, but okay, I asked the teachers, write a letter home to the parents and go collect some stones. And they were going to go to the village that weekend, and they got stones, and we even looked at the stones to make sure they were safe, and we put them in a barrel the first time, and they had so many stones. But I thought I'm going to just do it with one class, just to have them come out and make shapes or do something with the stones. The school had 2 tiers, like a top, a balcony, and then down below, the whole primary school came out. And then you can see it on 5 Birthday Cakes, that first video. And I knew I had something. I knew it was like, it was so powerful. And they were working so hard. The little ones made shapes, and you'll see. And then the older ones, one made a helicopter, one made, it looked like a house, and you have to be careful. It was where she goes and prays. A couple made things together. The rule is that you just want them to be quiet, which they're not, you know, they weren't so quiet. But anyhow, one little boy, and why I called it 5 Birthday Cakes, is they took 5 stones. He took 5 stones and put a little one on top, and then called it 5 Birthday Cakes. And I thought that was so clever. So that's why I named the video 5 Birthday Cakes. So that basically is the beginning of stonework play. And stonework play is the open-ended response to the invitation to work with stones. That's basically all it is. It's something so, it's so simple and yet so powerful. And I'm asking people to be in the present and to be in the presence with nature. It's a flexible medium which sparkles joy throughout playfulness.
That's perfect. So can you tell us what the stages are?
Steps.
I'm going to talk a little bit, steps, sorry. Talk a little bit about the steps.
Okay, I'll talk about the steps. The steps were created to help, 1 second. Okay, it was like a seed that was planted, and what was the realization? How can a seed become something more? How can it become a method? So I just talked about this seed, you know, how it got started. And then I want to, and then later I'd like to share culturally all the different places in the world that happened. I mean, like stones have been here before we were born, and they're going to be here a lot when we're gone. So, okay. So the stonework play method has 5 steps. The first step is gathering. Okay, it's simply going outside and picking up that stone that you really want. How does it feel? You know, you just pick them up, and either the teacher's doing it, or the children are doing it, or their parents and the children are doing it. You need stones, so you collect the stones that hold an interest to you. Then later on, you can sort them. You can put them in any kind of a like bins and stuff. So you feng shui the area so when they go get the stones, it's pleasant. Initially, I didn't have baskets to have them pick up the stones. Like the first time in Nepal, they just carried them with their hands. And then this one little girl took her shirt and stuck it in like, like she was pregnant. It was funny. Okay, so that's gathering. 2 is constructing. Constructing is like from an endless variety of stones, there's an infinite source of stories that can happen. And arranging the stones could mean stacking them. It could mean laying them next to each other. It could be making a design. It could be anything. So when they're doing constructing, that's when I ask them to be quiet. And I kind of set it up beforehand so they know they need to be quiet. And it's funny, when I'm doing it, all of a sudden, like 5 minutes in, you can feel the peacefulness in the whole room. That they're almost doing yoga or meditation. They're present, but they're totally engaged in what they want to be doing. And there's no right or wrong, which is a wonderful, powerful thing on the stones. Okay, so we got gathering, constructing. The next one is rendering. Rendering, what do you think rendering means? You probably know. Barbara, what's rendering?
I'm here, and I did my stonework play, but I have yet to render it. But rendering is to make a sketch of it, so that, well, it's the way it's permanent, because as we know, stones are permanent, but they're not permanent in that configuration that you yourself put together. So you have to make a copy of it in order to have your story.
Right, good. So, and that even becomes more meaningful. When they render, that's when their story kind of bubbles up and becomes like a real story. And I teach them when they're doing their stones, they're drawing it around, and they're making oops, it's so hard. They're making the shapes underneath. The other day, I made a picture of stones, okay? And so this is the rendering. It's the drawing around from the picture, from that was the stones, and then you have like a real picture of it, because this has to go away. So okay.
It's like putting the shading and everything in.
The shading, and they love it, because I have them tell them lick it, and they just go like halfway around the stone. So that makes it 3D. It makes it stand up, and they think now they're real artists. Okay, so rendering, I love it. But then also, I think what was fun to see with the stones, sometimes this one little boy, he couldn't draw the stones. He thought he couldn't do it. So he took every single stone off and put it down and traced it and put it back. And he did all the stones that way. So there's all kinds of ways to do it, which is fine. It's fine. All right. So then the next one is narrating. And this one is very interesting, is because initially, they're narrating. They're writing their story if they're old enough. If they're not, their parents or the teacher writes down the story, is the scribe. And so they're writing the story. Then the last one is sharing. And sharing, it refers to taking turns. It's a time for empathy, which is the ability to understand and listen to the thoughts and feelings of another. A time to gather silently and to listen as each participant shares his or her story, and then his or her feelings about the story, about the experience. So those are the 5 steps. And when we're doing the sharing, they go like this. So if you're doing a classroom, they each get a number, or they choose a number when they want to go. So we just go, and they have to go from one part of the room to the other because their stones are all over, and it's kind of fun. So it's a beautiful, almost a movement or a dance to show stonework play. So would this be a good time to show the video?
I think we can do that. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And go to where the video is.
Barbara had it edited, so it looks really nice. I think you'll get a feel of adults and children doing the 5 processes, the 5 stages.
Are you seeing my screen now?
I see. No, I don't see your picture.
Oh, okay, I gotta. Okay, I'm gonna start over.
Are you gonna hear this is another poem that's in the book.
It says I'm sharing my screen, but I can't. I can't get to it. Go ahead and read that, and I will come back.
Okay, why don't I could share about the cultures of history of the stones. Want me to do that?
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I was a little no.
No? Okay. I'll work on that while you do something else then.
Thank you. Okay, I'll do.
Sure.
I'll share about and I can stop when you want. Okay. I just wanted to share about the cultural history of using stones for expression. In Judaism, stones for centuries meant reverence and remembrance. In Japanese traditions, they have meant beauty, presence, accepting things as they are. And in Australia, in Aboriginal traditions, they have been used for art as a tool and represent what's sacred. Like for instance, in Australia, they take 2 stones and hit them together under the water, and the fish would jump up and they would catch the fish. So, I mean, they use them for wonderful tools. Did you figure it out?
Not yet. I've got a shortcut on my screen, and I've screen shared. So, Zoe, can you tell me if you're seeing my screen?
I'm not, but
you're not. Okay.
Go to share. Are you up in share content?
Sorry, just Zoe.
Are you up in share content, or in the share content option?
I was. Let me try it again.
And then there should be a screen option, right?
I see the screen.
It says share screen, but I'm trying to go. I have a clip on my desktop, and it's not letting me go there for some reason.
Right.
Let me work on that one.
Share your screen first, though.
I did. And then I clicked on the video, and I still can't get it to come up.
Do you want me to hit share screen? Would that help?
No, no, because it's on my computer.
Oh.
So give me 1 second here. So I have wait, I'm gonna try to bring it up first. Are you hearing it now or no?
We're hearing it,
we
but
can
not
hear
seeing
it, but yeah, we can't see it.
Okay, let me try to go back and.
I wish I was a little stone. Okay, while you're working.
Yeah.
So in Judaism, they put the stones on top of the grave at the gravesite, and in Japan, they have this thing called Suisiki, Suzuki. It's the art of stone appreciation. It's with natural stone, and you can only have one cut in it. And it came from it came from China in the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century. And it's one's impression is it's a kind of freedom that takes over for strength and natural beauty. So that's a beautiful piece of it's art. And then I told you about Australia. And so you should have practiced. Okay, what else can we talk about?
Barbara, you're on mute.
Can it just start?
There we go.
But this, you have to go back. It's at the end, Barbara. Can you start it from the beginning?
Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second here.
That's Peter Reynolds. And with his son, and with the blue bunny.
So I started putting stones down, and then suddenly I had this image, this tail grew, and I realized that this was becoming a dragon. And it reminded me of my friend Linda Ragsdale, who had the Peace Dragon project. And
this is the right
so
video.
I continued my dragon and the wings, and then I had my dragon standing on a peace sign, because he is a peace dragon. And then I drew a picture of the peace dragon, and I thought it would be kind of cool, seeing as rocks are circular-ish, like a peace sign. I decided to make my drawing all out of peace signs, and that is the peace dragon, dedicated to Linda Ragsdale. Created here at these.
This isn't the right video.
So, Wordplay international celebration.
Okay, so that's one example, and I'm going to find another one while you continue to talk.
Excuse me, this isn't the correct.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so you want? I can share some stories of.
Please do.
Okay. Well, looking at Peter is really nice. It's okay. Bristol, England. These are just examples, different kinds of examples of stonework play. In Bristol, England, there's a little boy, and he was 3 years old. And I think I showed you his stones were just these stones right like that. And he was in a tough situation, and he had been abused, and this was his first day of foster care. And he came in, and he was really sad. I had him do the stonework play, and I took a little card and put his name on it, and it was it, E.M. Stonework. The children came in, and he was having a snack, and they came in, they walked around his stones, and they looked at him, and they smiled, and he smiled back, and it was like I believe that this gave him a place, a feeling of belonging with his community, and especially on this difficult day. Another story that happened is when the earthquake happened in Nepal. It was 2015, and it was really sad. I don't know if you can see it, but the children were doing stonework play. They already knew stonework play, so this story was they put all the stones in the middle so they wouldn't get hurt when the earthquake happened.
Oh.
The other one is a man laying down. It's so hard to go backwards. He's laying down, right? And it's like he said that the man lied down on the floor and cried a lot. Then in the beginning, they took the stones and they built them up and they knocked them down. They became powerful of this trauma that they went through. And it really touched my heart that the stonework play really helped them heal, I think. Okay, in Melbourne, Australia, it's Margaret George was at the Peter Mac Center, Cancer Center. And she was a woman with red hair and a little ponytail on top. And she was had Aboriginal descent. She chose one special stone representing the people in her life that helped her get through the cancer. After she rendered her construction with extreme care in beautiful shadowing, and she showed depth with each stone. I loved how concentrated and being in the present she was. So she did that. And then in the circle, she called it Circle of My Life's Journey. Her stones represented different personalities, different friends, different cultures. She said, I'm the tallest one, the one with the red stone on top. My two grandchildren are the two little white ones. And that brought me much strength and joy. I asked, how did you doing stone play make you feel? And she said, relaxing, thinking of all the different people who have helped me fight my cancer. And she said, I'm going to try it again. And when she got up from the table, she gave me a big hug. So I knew it touched her. This story is my favorite, one of my favorites. Okay, oops. There, I'm going to point correctly. Here's the tree. This woman was from, her name was Padmini. And she was in a conference with me, with Tanya Maloney Maid in Melbourne, Australia. And I saw that she made this and I thought it was really interesting. And then she was kind of serious while she was doing it. And I said, I walked over to the table and so I saw she had placed a medium stones in a pattern that shared her story. I thought to myself, there seems to be a strong, tall tree. I kind of wondered what kind it was. And then she, there were a couple people, one taller than the other. I saw two animals, a turtle and a funny looking stick figure. So this is what she described. She described that she was very nervous going to rural India for a school holiday to visit her grandmother. She described how it meant a whole lot of mosquitoes, very little electricity, no television, not much fun for a kid growing up in Melbourne, Australia. But this is what happened. This is what happened. It was 6 o'clock in the morning and the dog came over and licked their faces to get up. Palmini was there with her brother who was a little older and taller. They quickly got dressed and ran to the barn to see the little calf nursed from her mom. I like the fact that she used the little kid kind of word, poop. She waited and waited until the cows pooped. Okay, then they shoveled it up and they spread it on the ground as fertilizers. Then they went to their favorite place to cool down at the pool, a water hole that was filled with rainwater, a garden snake, and a baby turtle. They swam and swam until they got so hungry, they ran over to the tree. They ran over to that tree and the boy was bigger and stronger, so he climbed to the top and he shook 4 mangoes out, and they ate them until they were so full. Later that evening, they gazed into the universe. And remember I told you that it was so dark because they didn't have electricity, but the sky was sparkling with the stars. And most of the time, there wasn't electricity, and it was just spectacular. So next to her was a faithful jar holding that she caught her fireflies. Her visit was a connection with nature. Her life in India, immersed in nature and purposeful. The stones helped her recall her past. And she cried. She was really touched by that. Okay, are you doing better?
I hope so. I found it again. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it, but we'll try.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
It was a little stone, waiting to be chosen.
You have to just click it open.
Is it not playing?
No, the words are playing, but not the picture.
Okay, I don't.
Oh, maybe go up on the top and it says play.
I'm going to try it one more time.
See on the top of the screen? It says play. Hit play.
I don't see it on the screen, so.
You want me to try it?
Let me try.
Well, it's anticipation. They can see it, right? It's going to be up.
Yeah.
It's up on your home.
Now is it up?
No.
I'm seeing it on my screen, so I don't know. Okay, you go ahead and talk, and I don't know how else to do this. It's up on my screen.
You worked so hard.
I know. It's all right.
Okay. The next story is.
Let me try this. Give me one more. Now, can you see it?
No, you're stuck on the page just showing all your files.
Oh, okay.
So shouldn't she just hit the play? It wouldn't work.
She
I did,
Well,
and
are
it's
you
just
screen sharing just like one tab, or are you screen sharing like live? Where you'll screen share?
1 second. I'm screen sharing. Yeah, I did push the screen share. So let me try this. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
No. Okay. I'm probably not gonna be able to do it because it's. I'm clicking on it, and it's coming up for me, and it's showing it for me, but I don't know why it isn't showing it for you.
I wish I was a little stone, waiting to be chosen, smooth and shiny.
Okay.
So are you seeing it or not? No. Okay. All right. I'm not going to be able to do it because I've gone into the files and clicked on it and it won't work. But I could maybe try. I just want to illustrate it, so I could maybe try something in.
Couldn't
Let me see if this will work.
person that's helping? Could she do it?
Are you seeing it now?
No.
No? Okay. I'm not going to be able to do it then. Sorry. Because it's all queued. I just don't know why it's not playing. Okay, well, let's go over the 5 stages again, and I'll tell you what my experience was.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first stage is gathering the stones, and I happen to like stones. I've studied stone actually, and stones are really important to the culture on my father's side of the family because there's Native American, and we call them grandfathers. So the grandfathers are the big rocks, the big stones that you would put in a circle and in a sweat lodge. And so I really have always been fond of stones like you. And when I picked out my stones, and then I washed them, and then I spread them out, and I allowed them to suggest to me what they needed to have happen. And so I had been, a week before, I had been to a nature center with some friends. We were doing the social distancing and had the masks and the whole thing, but we really needed to connect with nature. And so we went to this nature center, and there was a mother duck. And all of her little babies were underneath her body. She was trying to keep them warm, and her wings were spread over them. And it was the cutest thing because it kept peeking out from under her body. And I did not know that ducks, when they're first born, are yellow. They're not the wild color at all. They're yellow. So here are all these little baby ducks peeking their little yellow heads out from under this duck. And so that was my stone creation, was a duck. And she was sitting on eggs because the stones were, some of them were so smooth that they reminded me of eggs. And so that's what I did with my stone play. And I do have a picture here, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show it to you. But the one thing I noticed, and what I noticed about, let me see if I can get in here.
Did you do it outside or inside?
I did it inside.
Maybe the picture, maybe it will work. I'm seeing your screen.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, there's my duck with all the little stones. And you can see this stone here, he's starting to peck out of the egg. So, but what I noticed about doing this exercise is not, it's the texture, it's the weight, it's all the different colors. You know, it's really a very tactile, kinesthetic exercise. And there's almost a meditative quality to it. If you allow, you know, whatever you're looking at and you start putting things together, it actually suggests to you what it wants to become, which I think is wonderful. And that's why I think it's so creative with children, because you can make almost anything.
Where did you do it? Outside or inside?
I was inside when I did it.
Just play the video like that.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Here's the mommy duck. And that's what that just was up. You know, we're so hungry for spring here because we've been in quarantine. So that was my my need to get out and greet spring a little bit.
I'm so proud of you. That's great.
Let's see if this. All right.
Okay, enjoy, everyone.
It was a little stone.
Down.
Waiting to be chosen. Smooth and shiny. I could flicker.
Get louder.
Oh, or jagged, broken, pointed, black. Careful, I may hurt your toe. For that's not a stone, but a stone sprang out, making magic every day between the ocean and the seas.
There's music. There's no sound.
Your audio isn't sharing, Barbara.
Oh. Oh, this is. We're not hearing anything. If you could move your things, I could read it. Stones are a kinesthetic medium, never fixed in a place. The ground, the endless canvas, the hands to move them. Okay, so this will pretend we're old. I mean, the olden times. This is at a carnival in Worcester. It was, you can't hear me. Peter Reynolds. Okay, I'm going to read that one out loud if I can. I found it. Okay, once upon a time, there was a little boy. He wasn't the most normal kind of kid. Oh, can you make my voice or no?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. He had his own lion, giraffe, and peacock, and lots more. He was 9 years old and still never went to school. Finally, it was time to go to school. He had a lot of trouble. Then came Bring Your Pet Day. He was chosen to do it, and he brought his pet, the zebra. Some kids went home black and blue. P.S. Never poke a zebra. Oh, this one, he's singing. But if people are interested, they can see it right another time. It's Tom Moore, and we were in Washington, D.C. In a way, it was really good that it was quiet and silent.
Yeah.
Because y'all paid attention maybe more.
Well, the process itself is very, I've been a lifelong meditator, and the process itself is very much like meditation. And there seemed to be very few intrusive thoughts when I was focusing on what I was doing. So I could see where children really get into that. And then, when you're in that state of mind, that's an alpha state of mind, then it does trigger your imagination. So I can see why that would be really helpful for children, and why they would come up with those amazing stories. I can see why that, and how it happens, actually. It comes from holding the silence.
Mm-hmm.
So my apologies for not being able to play that. I don't know why my audio was not working. So let's talk a little bit about how teachers how do teachers find this? I know you've had teachers do the exercise themselves, and then how do their classes respond to it?
When I was in Australia, I did all the staff. Then the next day we did the whole school. It's a very little school. There were 16 children in the whole school. And then I came back like a month later, and they were doing lessons about that lesson. They absolutely loved it. And she used it as a teaching tool. So like a recall, what step did we do first, or what did we do second? And then they would recall and do a narrative of their Stonework Play story. The other thing, and then they did, they have this way they mark the paper, so they help get do better grammar and have a bigger adjective to make the story better. So she used it as a teaching tool for a lot longer. And guess what else they do, which I love? They go to the senior center. They all go and they each do it with seniors, and they love it. They teach the seniors how to do Stonework Play. in Australia. So that's one place that, and I think teachers, I think more in America, they think, oh, they're wasting time. It's not part of the curriculum. And they don't realize it's got math in it and science and one-to-one correspondence. It's got so many, and in writing and oral language and empathy. It's got so many things. It's, I just wish it would be in. I think in Nepal, it's very big now. If you go on YouTube, you can see one of the videos is about, it was a newscast, and it's like a grassroots movement all over there. And I was in Malaysia, and Anne, if she's up, she was doing it. She has children with special needs. They're mostly autistic and Down syndrome, and they were wonderful. I was a little nervous about going, but my premise is that I think anyone can do it. I had 99-year-olds, seniors, people at the Memory Cafe. They're wonderful. And so I thought, oh, I can do this. And I was taken back. They were probably best. They had the longest attention span to do the actual stories of the stones. I mean, using the stones, and they loved it. They just, and she's got a part of her curriculum. Like every week they do stonework play, and it's there. At Head Start, I've written a couple articles with that. They have it like after they wake up from nap time, they have it as an option that they can go do stonework play. And that's where they did it with the teacher outside, and they wanted their stones to connect, but yet they were okay. They knew there was no talking, you know, and so they did it there. In preschools, there's a school at Fort Devens, and when I was in Australia and we were the International Stonework Play Day, they were bringing, you know, stories, and I was so shocked. I'm sitting there, wow, Devon sounds familiar, and it was the town right next to me in Leominster, Massachusetts. So they have a whole week of stonework play in November, a whole week, and you can see, there's a video on that on YouTube, that their whole curriculum is all about stones, and I'm really impressed. So it can go on, you can do it in the classroom, you could do it as a learning, I don't think you can see this picture so much, but this was a person I trained in Chicago, and she just has like a little piece of, it looks like a ice cube tray, but it's bigger, and it's got just enough stones of different colors in it. And the children go sign up one at a time, and they do stonework play in that area. It's a 4x6 rug. They have it in Australia after I did the training. Here is a picture, and they just had a table, and they had the stones in the middle that I used, and then a place where they could do their stones. Isn't that clever? So I was just pleased that every person can come up with a different way how they want to implement stonework play.
Yeah, in one of those videos, the teacher was using, everybody had their own stone, and that was her way of taking roll, was they came in and they moved their stone. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was created that and then to bring nature into the classroom, because I for one feel that our kids don't get enough nature. They don't get enough exposure to nature. So to bring it into classroom that way, it's genius. I mean, it's really a fun thing to do.
And, you know, Magda Gerber, the late Magda Gerber, who trained me, she actually had them had stones as babies. And I remember one time we were at Pacific Oaks, and there was a baby, and like the baby turned over onto the grass, and she felt like she saw there was a stone there, and she felt it. And then a truck came and made a big noise. And so you don't know what it took her like 2-3 seconds or half, you know, to start to cry. And it's like, we're in such a rush to decide to fix it. And I created this term, it's called Terry time, for my dissertation.
Yeah.
It's the amount of silence between interaction, between a person, verbal and nonverbal, but it's also between the stone and you. And I added it onto the stone, but it really works, that the timing and how precise they do it and how they can change their mind and make it different. But your animal was wonderful. I was very and
I was just so inspired by that duck, the spring duck. Right. So I wonder, is there a difference between the way children react and the way adults react to stonework play?
Okay, it really depends. I think if you saw the work from a child and an adult, that you couldn't really tell the difference. I think it depends on the culture, like what I told you about in Nepal, that I went in and they were sitting together and I told them to move apart and make their own. They all made flowers. They all made flowers. But in the second room, I had them farther apart and they all made different things. But they're so governed. That's why the teachers need to do it before they do it with children. They're so governed by how they were brought up. So if they were brought up by rote learning and memorization, then there's a right way, you know. I had the hardest time when I was in Nepal, but also, and I was at the boys, it was at Chautauqua, and they were younger there, but they didn't know how to say a title. Like, I wanted you to give your work a title, and they didn't understand. So I ran and got a book to show them a book. What's the name of the book? So then they could still just do airplane, you know, car. They couldn't put it with an adjective. So that took time. That took a good, till I came back again. And then finally we're getting stories. Or in the beginning, they would have someone do the story, you know, like one child, and the rest would do it. So it just takes time for them to see the importance of trying to get all the steps done, you know.
Yeah, my experience, it's such a simple thing, but it's a really profound experience. And I know that you, yeah, well, I know. And you encourage adults or the teachers to do it before they do it with children. I would echo that adults need to do it because, as I said, it puts your brain into a different rhythm, and then it allows imagination to emerge.
And what happened is that adults that did it, I thought they were good. Not one wrote about children, other children. They were all personal things about themselves. And I thought that was so interesting. Then they understood how powerful it was. And then they would respect children, and they wouldn't be walking around and talking to each other. They would be there really paying attention and helping.
So they were listening while the child was telling their story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it evokes that. I told you that I think it's a bit of a spiritual experience too. Just to have that time to be quiet, to meditate, to allow, you know, your medium to suggest to you how it wants to be constructed. It's a really beautiful experience. So I would encourage everybody to go on YouTube and look at some of your videos, since we weren't able to show that one today, or at least not with the sound, so that they can know what the steps are and to experience it for themselves, and to maybe then incorporate it into the classroom. It certainly doesn't cost anything.
Right. Also, Barbara, not just the classroom, the world is really changing right now. And I'm so happy that you have me on. I want it to happen now. I mean, we have an opportunity. Everybody's kind of stuck in their house. Hopefully they're trying to stay home, and they could have a little area and do it, you know. First the parents do it, then the whole family does it, and then they can do it on their own when they need to say that they're sad or that they're happy. I was listening to a talk the other day, and they were saying, oh, when this 3-year-old or a 5-year-old has a tantrum, it's okay, just be there, be present, be supportive. They don't even have to have the tantrum. They could have this as an option, so they could get their feelings out and they could document them. It'd be a beautiful book of their stonework play. Do you understand?
Absolutely. So if we wanted to get you have both Stonework Playbook that you've self-published now, right? You're in your second edition, and also Baby Dancing. And tell us again where we can find those.
Well, Baby Dancing, just go to dsuskind.com, my website, and you can see it there. I can just show it to you. This is the book. It's cute, and it shows laying on my back, my foot made a tap, moving to my side, I start to jive, faster than a bunny, I turn to my tummy, so it's like that. And then at the end, the children can act it out, and it's free, and you can see the real children. And the older children do it to the younger ones, and the younger ones can lay down and do it. So when I was in one thing we didn't talk about is the orphanages, and
please.
Yes, I loved it. I loved doing it in the orphanages because I thought I used to do the book and when I was in the orphanages, but this one little girl, I was there and it was dusk and I just taught it and they said, okay, we can have dinner later. And so we went outside and they did it. And it was just like a yard without grass. And there was a pile of stones. They did it and they loved it. And then we had to take the motorcycle and put lights on, turn the lights on because it was dusk, but they wanted to tell their stories. And after she was done, she made her house like a home. And then she says, I love this. I am so happy. And I was surprised. This little boy made a computer, like he made it like looking like a computer. And so they have so much creativity if given the chance. And then I got on my motorcycle, where I was driving, and I cried. I was so sad that they have so many opportunities by just giving them stones. And I've gone to a lot of orphanages to do it because nobody could take it away from them. They can go outside whenever, and get the stones and tell how they're feeling. So it was important.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is another dimension to this, actually. It really is a dimensional experience. I'm going to open the chat to folks who are watching. If you want to ask Diana any questions, put them in the chat. And Kathy Kathibla is here. She said, I don't know how to tell you I'm here other than I'm here. So she is here. I want to read this quote that kind of sums this up. This is something Diana wrote. Stonework is a form of creative learning, engaging the senses and animating imagination, allowing each person to create something unique. The weight, form, and texture of each stone help people make artistic choices that result in original, imaginative, personal creations. Its importance is confirmed by Richard Luce research that tells us every child needs nature, not just the ones with parents who appreciate nature, every child. He warns of the negative impact of a nature-deprived society. Stonework remedies this by bringing nature and its enrichment of the imagination to everyone. In addition, stonework helps the artist, no matter how young, to explore and express emotions, thoughts, and feelings via the act of creating both the art of the stone arrangements and the stories they elicit. Stones are a kinesthetic medium, never fixed in their place or meaning. The ground and endless canvas and small hands, the brushes that move them. I thought that was really a wonderful explanation, a wonderful description of what occurs, because it is a process, definitely. So I'm going to look and see. Someone is saying, Kathy Blackwell says hello. And
she was my first student at Fitchburg State.
Okay. And Paula is saying hello from Los Angeles. And there's a question here. She's wondering, I'm wondering with the rendering, do you actually trace around the stones or do you just look at the picture and draw it? Maybe you could answer that question.
Sure. You look at your stones and then draw them. And so you want a one-to-one correspondence. So if it's little, you make it little. If it's bigger. If it's dark, you try to shade it. So you really have like a camera-ready picture of the stones. I mentioned about this little boy traced them because he thought he couldn't draw them.
A lot of people think they can't draw until they actually start doing it. Everyone is an artist in my book.
One thing we didn't talk about is
Yeah, go ahead.
pedagogy.
Okay, please.
So the good things that Stonework Play does is self-directed learning and autonomy. This one little boy, he, you know, did I tell you the one at Head Start? They said that he couldn't do it, and he was so like he did it, and he did it beautifully, and they were shocked that, you know, because he would throw them and he would be bad, and he wasn't. He just loved it. So I think it gives autonomy, increased focus, and critical thinking. That they are really. Oh, this is the picture at that Head Start, where it's the teacher. Well, it was nap time, and they went out and they did their thing, but they used it together. So I thought that was nice. And then this is increased focus. And I think he did SpongeBob though. Increased focus and critical thinking. And then sustained involvement and effort. Lillian Katz taught me, my professor at Illinois, and she said that excitement's a drag. You get up there and then the kids get depressed. And it's so true. With Stonework Play, I think they stay pretty even keel, and they are engaged in a process that, again, no one can take away from them. And so I think that's really important. Meaningful engagement. There's a thing that tells like intellectual engagement and challenge that, oh, this was a good one. It was, he couldn't make the robot. This was the museum, her name was Alice Folger, and he made the rainbow, he had a rainbow, and then he wanted to make a robot, and he didn't know how. So she says, well, how about a blueprint? So he took out a paper and he made a blueprint of it, and then he put it on and he was fine with the robot. It was so cool. So you can, you know, I guess, confidence in their own intellectual power by being the initiator in the process. And I think that's so important. This third grader was being bullied. And so she used the clouds, the sun. She said that her situation in terms of a natural phenomenon, creating clouds that was blocked by the sun and refused to move. And I thought that was so interesting. And then another one that was in, I was at Bristol the little boy was talking about an older teenager that was being bullied, and he said it's not nice just because he's poor, and he he had made a face with a really sad mouth, and he said he's very sad. An application of developing skills to meaningful projects. Pages for Peace, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Have you? She was my student, and she died, Betsy Sawyer, and they had the largest peace book in the world, and I kind of helped. And she was in my class, and when we did something similar, and so then she went on with this, but that was a good one. Sustained involvement with the worthwhile topics. The little girl in England, she was beautiful, and she was from another country. She couldn't speak any English, and she sat with me, and I don't know if you saw her. She piled up the stones and they would fall down, and she tried to pile them up again and fall down, and she would smile, but she never gave up, and she sat there 45 minutes. Then later that week, we videoed it, and a week or two later, she went and saw herself, and she just laughed. She thought it was so funny. It was cool. So it's persistence as a means of overcoming a challenge. And then the last one is that one about, and I shared it already, feeling of belonging to community and school, that little boy felt that he was happy to be included in the school after his, being abused. And so
I think that's important. I'm glad you brought that up. And especially with the budgets diminishing now for teachers, stones are free and they're everywhere. And they can be used to make art, and they can be used to create character, and they can be used to train to share, and, as you were saying, empathy and all of those things, and particularly imagination. And so it's really important in countries that can't afford, toys for children. It's really, really important. I was in Russia and saw that a lot of the orphanages, they have no toys. And so to put stonework play into practice, it prevents failure to thrive and problems with children with their development. So I really am a proponent of it.
do you want to read the Q&A, or you want me to read it?
I don't see another question here.
Okay,
Oh, wait.
Please share.
Okay, so she's saying she has to run, but it's wonderful. Thank you. She's going to share it on her Facebook page as an idea for parents and kids. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have this, I'm going to see if I can get this video to work and then put it up on our page as a resource. And also this video will be up on the page as a resource.
Excuse me, this is Louisa Hart. I'm looking at the
Okay.
Q&As, and she said, please share this webinar was an amazing experience. I can see that being powerful with individuals who experience PTSD, such as veterans, survivors of abuse, absolutely. When I was in Israel, we did it there. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have that on mine. I don't know why I didn't see it. So thank you. Thank you, Louisa.
Q&A. It's under Q&A.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe there are more there. Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's another one.
Okay, so, yeah, she's talking about, there's going to be, when we get out of this situation that we're in with the COVID virus, there's going to be a lot of PTSD with healthcare workers, especially, because they've really been overwhelmed and in the trenches, and it would be wonderful to have, to do a stonework play with them. Maybe we can talk about that. So we're at the top of the hour. In fact, we're a little bit over, and people are saying that they need to leave. But I just want to close by thanking you for instructing us in how important the stones are to the world, and our lives and our futures and our creativity, and particularly imagination and storytelling. And you had said that the teachers, when they first were introduced to us, some of them kind of were taken aback because they were afraid there would be a free-for-all in their classroom. And you told me that no child has ever thrown a stone that you can remember.
Oh, this is 11 years. Oh.
Yeah, 11 years, and they've never been rowdy. So good for you. This has been a feature of the Creativity Camp at the International Charter for Compassion, and that's charterforcompassion.org, and it's at the bottom of the front page. If you go to the front page, you can see who's up next. Next week, we'll have Diana Ketterman, who's going to talk about COVID-19 and the pandemic and how to spread compassion instead of germs. Again, I'm Barbara Kaufman, steward of the arts sector, and if you like the programming you saw today and you want to support it, you can go to Diana's Suskind.com, and you can go to the charterforcompassion.org and make a donation if you'd like. And if you would like to become a part of the charter and a part of this movement to spread compassion on the planet, I would encourage you to go to the charter website and click on partner and become a charter partner. It doesn't obligate you to do anything, and it doesn't obligate you financially, but you can be linked to people who are actively spreading compassion on the planet. And I can't think of a better pastime. So thank you so much, Diana. Thank you for your work. And we will put up some resources for people to see after the webinar, and we'll put up the recording. So thank you very much, and happy Mother's Day to everybody a little bit late.
Stonework play is universal. and I want it to be universal. And thank you so much for doing this.
Agree. Yes, yes. Well, let's give them an assignment since, you know, this is a teaching experience. Our assignment is you as parents go out with your children, pick your stones, come back home, clean them, lay them out, and do your pictures, then do your rendering, and then tell your stories. So that's your assignment for today. Thank you so much, Diana.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.